The sine value was positive in quadrants 1 and 2. Cos was positive in quadrants 1 and 4. And tan was positive in 1 and 3. If we know when they're positive, it's easy enough to decipher when they're negative whenever they're not positive. So if sine was positive in 1 and 2, then it's going to be negative in 3 and 4. If cos was positive in 1 and 4, then it's going to be negative in 2 and 3. And if tan was negative in 1 and 3, it's going to be negative in 2 and 4. The easy way we remember this is we call it the cast rule, or some people like to use add sugar to coffee. Cast starts in quadrant 4, and it's the only reason why some people don't like it. And it spells out C-A-S-T to show when ratios are positive. In quadrant 1, all of them are positive. Tan, sine, and cosine, all positive. In quadrant 2, only sine is positive. Quadrant 3, only tan is positive. Quadrant 4, only cos is positive. And in quadrants 2, 3, and 4, the one that isn't positive, or the two that are not positive, are obviously negative. So, determine without technology whether the given trig ratio is positive or negative. Sine of 340, well, that's going to be in quadrant 4. And in quadrant 4, only cos is positive, so it's going to be negative. Tan of 227. 227 is in quadrant 3. And tan is positive in 3. And sine of 88 degrees, that's in quadrant 1. All of them are positive in quadrant 1, so sine has to be positive. In 235, that's in quadrant 3, because it's between 180 and 270. And only tan is positive there, so that has to be negative. In 308, that's in quadrant 4, where only cosine is positive, so this is positive. And in 123, that's in quadrant 2, where only sine is positive, so that has to be negative. When we're doing the trig ratios of an angle in terms of the reference angle, then we need to go through the steps of determine the sign of the ratio. So based on the quadrants it's in, is it going to be positive or negative using the cast rule? Determine the measure of the reference angle based on how far away it is from the x-axis, and then we combine those two ideas. So if I am mathematically showing it, if I have cos of 260, then I know that in this space, cos is negative. The reference angle is 80 degrees. So cos of 260 degrees would be the same as the negative cos of the reference angle, 80 degrees. So if I need to rewrite as the same trig function using an acute angle or the reference angle, then if I have sine of 140 in this quadrant, it's going to be positive. In quadrant 2, it's going to have a reference angle of 40 degrees. So sine of 140 has to be equivalent to the positive sine of 40 degrees. And I could always put both these in my calculator to double check. For tan of 323, tan will be negative. The reference angle is going to be 37 degrees, which means that I can combine this to negative tan of 37 degrees. And remember, once again, always put in your calculator to double check. For example, C is going to be neg. The reference angle is going to be 15 degrees. It'd be negative cos of 15 degrees. For sine of 287 is going to be negative. The reference angle in this case is going to be going up to 360 degrees, so be really careful that you're not doing it to the y-axis. It's not going to be 17 degrees, it's going to be 73 degrees for the reference angle. And it would be negative sine of 73 degrees. For cos of 308, this is going to be positive. The reference angle in this case is going to be 52 degrees. So it would be just cos of 52 degrees would be the same thing. And last but not least, for tan of 199, this is going to be in quadrant 3, so it's going to be positive. The reference angle is going to be 19 degrees, and this would just be tan of 19 degrees. We can see the patterns in the trig ratios, where sine of 180 minus the angle is the same as sine of the angle. Sine of 180 plus the angle would be the negative sine of that reference angle. And sine of 360 minus the angle would be the negative sine. Remembering that this is how we'd solve for quadrants 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. We know that cos is going to be positive in quadrant 4. We know that tan is going to be positive in quadrant 3 and is going to be negative in the other cases. All right, go ahead, get some practice done.